All right, welcome back everyone dito sa first of 2025. My goodness, 2025 na. Discussion natin with no less than former Associate Justice Antonio Carpio. Isa ito sa mga favorite guests natin. Sorry kay Ronald Llamas and the rest. Ito yung mga most viewed guests natin, si Justice Carpio Trodier. Hindi ko alam bakit, Justice, gusto ka ng mga audience. Dahil ba mabait ka or dahil hindi ka mabait, Justice Carpio? How was your
Mabait
New Year?
ako. Mabait ako eh.
I think, I think that's because hindi mabait si Ronald Llamas. Sabi ko, aba, natatalo si Ronald Llamas. I mean, I just put slices of our interview, 100,000 views. So we're able to make at least close to 500,000 views dun sa huling interview natin. Although yung mga unang in-upload natin yung mga sub-live version na hindi pa HD. But Justice, I really want to talk to you today about something very serious. Kasi I don't know if you also are seeing what I'm seeing, but it looks like the momentum has shifted in favor of the Dutertes in a sense that everyone is almost talking about the budget. Yung mga kababalaghan, perceive or real about the budget. And it looks like hindi na pinag-usapan masyado yung Quadcom, hindi na masyadong pinag-usapan yung mga kababalaghan ng mga Dutertes. And later on, I want to talk to you about Matabato. Matabato's case and the ICC. But before going there, Justice Carpio, for the purpose of fairness, it's not like we have not been warning the Marcos administration not to get this wrong. And yet, the final budget that has come out, $109 billion, ang daming mga questionable elements dyan. Can we lay out, Justice Carpio, what are the questionable elements of the budget of Marcos Jr. administration for the new fiscal year?
Well, first of all, you have the PhilHealth with a zero allocation. I mean, that's that's a crime because that's a gut issue for the people. Sa masa talagang ano yan, you know, that's unforgivable. You give the PhilHealth or zero budget. Second, yung education, no? I mean, for us, we're behind already, behind our neighbors in terms of education, and that's the future of the country. And they did not give the budget for computerization. And that's what we badly need to catch up. Talagang ano, bakit uh, just 12 billion, hindi pa nila binigay? And then, ang ginawa pa nila, pinataba nila yung pork barrel sa DPWH. So if you look at the budget now, makita mo doon, for the first congressional district of what this province or this city, flood control. Puro flood control ang binigay nila. So, what
Alam
is
na
that?
this, alam na this.
Alam na this. Alam na natin kung ano yon. And talagang ano, all over the country, flood control. So, against computerization, against PhilHealth, talagang wala kang panalo. So, well, I don't know why they did it uh, because it was expected. And there's still a solution. The president can announce, I'm going to ask Congress to pass a supplemental budget for PhilHealth and for DepEd. Tapos na. I think that will calm down everybody. Sasabihin niya lang yan. I'm asking Congress now to pass a supplemental budget. Yun ang ano. But if they will dig in, talagang magagalit. And this will continue. This is just the beginning of the anger of the people. So, very easy to put out this fire. This a fire that's going to grow wilder and wilder.
Like Los
So,
Angeles fire, right?
oh,
Our hearts goes
so
to, cousins and families natin na apektuhan doon sa LA also. I want to go back to this, Justice. It's not like we didn't warn this administration na ingat kayo. Huwag kayong magkalat. Yung PhilHealth pa lang na mga fiscal transfers na ginawa ng Department of Finance, Justice, we did 6 vlogs together. Just the two of us. About just the PhilHealth issue. We have been warning na if you get this wrong, gagamitin ng mga Dutertes yan, gagamitin ng mga kalaban yan to
yeah,
distract the issue. So what the heck is going on, Justice Carpio? Why ganitong nangyayari? Didn't BBM also threaten to veto this, to make an intervention? Parang halos inamin niya na may problema tong budget na yan, di ba?
Yes. Ang masama pa niyan, sabi niya, may pera ang PhilHealth, may 500 billion. Eh, there is a financial statement signed by the president of PhilHealth, the auditor of PhilHealth, and everybody at the top echelon of management of PhilHealth, saying that the total equity of PhilHealth as of first quarter of 2024 is negative 600 billion. I mean, he has lost his credibility. I think, but he still can recover by saying, okay, I want this pass. I'm certifying it as an emergency measure. Pwede pa rin eh. Pero but if they dig in and say that they're correct, that PhilHealth is overflowing with funds, eh talagang magagalit ang tao.
What's going on here, Justice? Can you talk about it? Kasi it's not like BBM did not recognize na may problema sa budget na yan. It's not like BBM recognized na may public backlash sa issue na
Well,
yan. And we don't talk about that. But what is your assessment of his intervention and mga last minute mga tweaks na ginawa niya?
I think the the calculation of the House na okay, mag-iingay sila, but we need the pork barrel because this is election year, makakalimutan yan, iboboto naman tayo. Pagdating sa election, we will get the votes because we have the pork barrel with us. So I think they took that risk. It's a calculated risk for them. Kasi we warned them. Everybody was warning them and kitang-kita eh. But they still continued. So I think that is in their calculation na makakalimutan yan. And the people will still vote for them, and that is what is important. I think that is their calculation.
But this calculation of the politicians in the legislature, the re-election is coming at the expense of BBM. Ang grabing attack kay BBM online, di ba? From genuine opposition, from fake opposition, from DDS camp. Everyone is riding on this issue, Justice Carpet. This is, I won't say political suicide, but a kind of a semi-harakiri by BBM, isn't it?
Yeah, kasi mangyari niyan, at the ground level, the district, the congressman will be elected because he has the pork barrel. But the blame will go to the president. Yan ang
Buck
mangyari.
stops with
And
the
that's
president.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, that is what's happening now.
So, I know, Justice Carpio, you're more polite and diplomatic than Ronald Liao. I don't know if you saw it 2 days ago. Si Ronald, nag-meltdown na sabi niya, galaw-galaw, baka mas stroke. Sabi ko sa kanya, sis, ano ba ang nangyayari dito? Ano bang kulang? Kulang ba sa political will ito si BBM? Takot ba siya sa mga alalay niya, sa mga alaga niya? He knows this is bad for him. Nagagamitin na ito ng kalaban. Kung may purong mga questionable items itong budget na ito, $109 billion. This is unprecedented.
Yeah, in fact, I just saw a post kanina na I have joined Sara against the president because I'm against the budget. That's there's this post going around. Of course, it's not true, but they're taking advantage of
Gamit
this.
nila, exactly, which is something I want to talk about more. So just from a technical standpoint, of course, my veto power and president, which could, of course, be overridden, but I doubt the Congress will try to override the president. What should have President Marcos done in terms of his veto power? Ano yung mga dapat talagang radically na binago niya dito sa 2025 fiscal budget natin para magkaroon tayo ng sapat na reassurance about at least the minimum level of transparency and good governance pagdating sa ating gobyerno?
Well, what he should have done is to uh, reduce the budget of DPWH by 70 billion
Yung
plus
akap. Yung akap.
hindi yung akap sa DSWD yun eh. Yung
Sorry. Yeah. DPWH pala. Yeah,
so
DSWD.
70 plus 12 about reduce it by 100 billion. Kasi lumobo by about 200 billion plus eh. 100 billion lang. And that 100 billion, uh, 15 billion put it to education for computerization kasi 12 billion ang hiningi nila eh. And then the rest put it to PhilHealth. With that, people will come down. Kasi alam nila na you reduce the pork barrel by 150 billion. Ang ginawa nila, they vetoed the unprogrammed appropriation, which is crazy. It's an empty gesture because there's no money in the unprogrammed appropriation. Parang slate of hand eh, na, oh, ito. Pero it doesn't mean anything because that is not funded. You veto it, pero wala nang pera yun eh. You vetoed nothing in effect. So simply lang reduce the DPWH budget by 100 billion, give 70 billion of that or 80 billion of that to PhilHealth and 20 billion to education, tapos. And I think people will just keep quiet or will accept it. But that's it. He can still do it now.
So ano itong
He
sinasabi
can ask
ni
Congress to pass
ah,
supplemental budget.
so ano itong sinasabi ni Senator Lacson, who of course always took proud in not taking a pork barrel, na yung essentially yung provisions ng ating batas that gives too much leeway to the congressman to dilly-dally with the taxpayers' money, na inayos na daw yan, na mutin academic daw yung mga kritisismo doon sa mga loopholes sa batas. Anong basa mo dito, Justice Carpio?
Well, first of all, kasi in the 2024 budget, they authorize the Secretary of Finance to get excess funds from government GOCCs, no? From PhilHealth, from PDIC, and transfer it to the National Treasury to fund the unprogrammed appropriation. Sabi ni Senator Lacson, walang ganyan provision sa 2025. So, academic na yan. But we are talking still of the 2024 because the case that you file is with the 2024, and it doesn't mean that they will not do it again in 2026. So we have to stop it now. We have to get the Supreme Court to rule that you cannot give a zero allocation to PhilHealth because the Constitution says PhilHealth is given priority. And you cannot give DPWH a higher budget than education because the Constitution says education must have the highest priority. Ang ginawa pa nila, kinuha nila yung mga budget ng Philippine Military Academy, PNP, PNP Academy, National Defense College, DILG Academy, and they said this is education. But traditionally, hindi naman sinasama yan because that's not under CHED, that's not under DepEd. At saka, that is like in PMA, you study military science and tactics. That's not general education. Ang
So they're stretching
education,
the definition of education just to
at
meet.
saka sabi ko nga, bakit hindi nila sinama yung Philippine Judicial Academy, yung budget ng Philippine Judicial Academy. Academy din yun eh. Parang Philippine Military Academy din yun eh. Bakit hindi yun sinama?
Baka naman. Meron ba tayo? Ano bang meron dyan na education program? Baka pwede na No, I mean,
Baka
became
mag-object
ridiculous.
ang Supreme Court, ay wag ninyo kami isama. Pero pangalan Academy eh, so dapat isama.
Medyo
Sabi
ridiculous
nga ni
na.
Shelo, nag-word search raw. Hinanap yung education at saka academy at saka institute. Lahat yung
Baka
sinama.
nag-chat GPT lang. Justice, nag-chat GPT. Ano yung mga pwedeng word na may education, pwede natin isama. Well, obviously that's questionable. Justice, I know you don't want to do Ronald Liama style of analysis, but with all due respect, what the heck is going on? BBM should know that this is gonna create a backlash na pwede magkaroon ng blowback dito. Matagal na binabantayan itong issue na to. Matagal na sinasabi ng mga Duterte na ang tunay na corrupt ay mga Marcoses. It's not like the Marcoses have the best of reputation on good governance. This looks like a Ano parang own
inflicted.
goal own goal. I forgot the German term for that, yung eine, you like you when you own goal yourself.
Yeah,
This was not a forced error, if I can put it that way.
yeah. I mean, we saw it coming, but they were so blinded by the election. For them, it's the be all and end all to win in the election. Saka na yung problema later on. But the casualty will be the president because the people will blame the president.
Kaya I'm surprised BBM is not saying it, that he's gonna hold the empty bag, right? I don't know if they gagamitin laban sa kanya yan, because in a way there's a kind of a cynical understanding na ganun talaga mga politiko. Every election they're gonna find ways to have a fiscal space for the elections to come. Now going back to this, Justice Carpio, gaano kadelikado ito for BBM? Because as we mentioned early on in this program, mukhang nag-narrative shift na, no? Medyo the momentum has shifted. There's a very few discussion of Sara Duterte's confidential fund. Sabi nga ni Sara, di ba? Ano lang, parang sabi niya, maliit lang naman yan, millions lang yung pinag-usapan. Billions ang nakawan dyan, kumbaga, di ba? This kind of feeds into that kind of narrative, right?
Well, itong PhilHealth, that's a gut issue because people will feel if they be turned back because there are no funds, instead of PhilHealth shouldering, at least they should shoulder 25% or 50% at least. If they shoulder only 10% of your medical bills, palang wala yun. That doesn't mean anything. Magagalit talaga. And the president said, I assure you there will be no diminution of your benefits. Pag meron, sira siya. Parang 20 kilo rice yan. Hindi mangyari eh.
Well, sabi nga ni Ronald Llamas, yung ultimate dream niya magkaroon ng 20 pesos per kilo na bigas. But mamaya na tayo dyan kay Sir Ronald. Justice Carpio, is this a question of curbing your greed problem? Is it a question of embarrassment of riches problem? Is this a problem of let's just juice it out while we're in power because we don't know what's gonna happen next? Ano bang instinctual read mo dito, Justice Carpio?
Well, I think they miscalculated. They think na makakalimutan yan. Pag nanalo na tayo, we will say that's the voice of the people. So they think, but gagamitin ito nila Duterte against them eh.
100%, 200%, I would say 200%.
So this will not go away, and the moderates, the people like us, will not let this go also.
Exactly. And that's why we're having this discussion, Justice Carpio. Kasi si Ronald, nung isang araw, purong banat niya sa mga Dutertes at mga... So
But
obviously,
it can still be salvaged, huh? It can still be salvaged. All
okay,
the
so if it's
president has
gonna
to
be
do is to,
salvage, Justice Carpio, give me step 1, 2, 3. So what should BBM do
well,
in the next 2 days or 1 week?
the president can ask Congress to pass a supplemental bill to give PhilHealth because mandatory yung sin taxes eh. Sabi
Right.
ng Internal Revenue Code, directly and automatically remitted to the PhilHealth yung collection. That's about uh, uh, per my count kanina about 70 billion. Ibigay na nila kasi batas naman yan eh. They should follow their own law, the law that they pass, the Congress. So, pwede pa rin eh. Pwede niya ihabol yan eh. Tsaka yung 12 million na hinihingi ng education, ibigay niya na.
He has
And
that. And you don't think enough people will over rule his veto, no? Malabo na mag-overrule ng veto yung mga kongreso, no?
well, the congressman I think, will just follow kasi they know it's the reputation of the president here that is at stake, no? His popularity is at stake here. Kasi ultimately siyang i-blame nito eh. Kasi
Ah,
dati, ang he could have, pwede niya masabi na I submitted a very good budget, pinalitan ng Congress, but he had the means to veto it eh. Hindi niya, ang binito niya yung mga harmless provisions, unfunded items. It doesn't mean anything.
Immaterial.
Immaterial. Talagang ano, ka, parang linoloko tayo. That's the effect. Sabi nga ni Cielo, ginagago tayo.
Cosmetic na medyo sablay pa. Um, I'm gonna be with Cello next week, so I think we're gonna continue this conversation with her next week. But going back to this Justice Carpio, again, just to be clear, it's not like sinasabi natin na wag natin i-criticize yung mga kababalakan at mga kontrobersiya pagdating sa budget ni BBM. But what I want to emphasize here is that shouldn't we as in genuine progressives, genuine advocates ng good governance, yung mga tao na may adhikay na talaga magkakaroon ng demokratiko at progresibong gobyerno, shouldn't we also be worried na sinasakyan ng mga Dutertes ito eh? Kasi sabi ko, yung narrative ng mga Dutertes, I don't know if you saw there's this graphs, Justice, na para sa isang banda, si Sara Duterte, parang 150 million, whatever. And then yung kay BBM, billion, 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 billion. Essentially, the message is, small time lang ginagawa ni Sara, even if, assuming mali, ang totoong kriminal, ang totoong korap ay talagang mga BBM, no? Yung ganun yung narrative ng mga DDS eh. And my sense is, actually, it's an effective narrative. Shouldn't the genuine opposition, us, in many ways, the people who carry the conscience of the nation, shouldn't we be conscious now while we're calling out itong mga kababalakan ni Marcos, also not forget na pagdating sa bilyones, there's Farmali, there's Pogo, there's DOH, there's confidential fund. Can you remind our good friends about the billions of questionable practices by the Dutertes, Justice Carpio?
Yeah, we should be doing that. That's why, well, we filed the case before the Supreme Court regarding the confidential funds, and we're thinking of filing another case regarding the Sinovac, no? Because up to now, nobody knows the
Overpriced.
price at which we bought the Sinovac. Thailand and Indonesia already released the price at which they bought Sinovac. Tayo hindi pa. So, bakit hindi, pag pareho lang presyo, bakit hindi ilabas? Baka mataas masyadong presyo natin, kaya hindi linalabas. So we are at it, but of course the issue of the day is the budget because that's recent. But we're not forgetting what the Dutertes have done, no? Like for example in the drug war, no. Uh, so
That's what I'm saying, Justice, right? Unang-una, before we even go to Matabato and drug war in JK, because my contention is if there's greater evil than corruption is killing people en masse, right? But before we go to Matabato and ICC, I want to talk about this. Shouldn't also the genuine opposition keep also reminding people na ang ugat talaga ng problema sa corruption na hindi lang pork barrel, kasama din yung confidential fund, which is essentially the brainchild of the Dutertes.
kadugtong yan, Richard, eh. The confidential fund of the president under Duterte was enormous, humongous. So that was the one that was used to give reward to the extrajudicial killers, no? So magkasama yan.
Magkasama yan, di ba? And in many ways, if this is Dante Alighieri's hell, kung level 1 or 2 kay BBM, level 7 na yata yung ginawa ng mga Duterte, di ba? I mean, sabi ko, hindi ito usapan ng lesser evil. Ang usapan dito, greater evil. Right? Ang usapan dito, greater evil. Kaya sabi ko sana yung mga kasama natin sa civil society and opposition should not forget the big picture here. No? Justice Carpio, how worried are you about the Dutertes riding the budget scandal issue and criticism to essentially whitewash everything na inexpose ng Quadcom, inexpose ng mga kung ano-anong hearing dyan, inexpose ng mga investigations, inexpose ng mga reports and discussions about yung mga questionable practices ng mga Dutertes, whether it's on EJK, whether it's on confidential fund, whether it's gentleman's agreement with China.
They know and they will use it. They know that their biggest counterpunch, strongest counterpunch against Marcos will be the budget. That's the biggest counterpunch. So they'll do that. I have no doubt, and they're doing it already. And we foresaw this. We anticipated this, but they still continued with it. I mean, Congress still continued with it.
But nevertheless, doesn't that mean that like we, the conscientious citizens, or at least those in opposition and civil society, should constantly remind the people na yes, kinikriticize natin ang BBM, pero wag natin kalimutan ng Farmali, Pogo, lahat ng mga kababalakan ng ginawa ni Digong. In a sense na wag tayo magpagamit sa mga Dutertes. Wag natin hayaan na sumakay sila dito sa issue nila. Wag natin hayaan na i-hijack ng mga Dutertes itong issue ng scrutiny ng budget ni BBM.
Yeah, we are doing that, no? But as I said, it BBM should just uh, to 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 clarify everything. He should ask Congress to pass a supplemental budget for DepEd and for PhilHealth. Tapos na. It's so simple.
It's so simple if you are a decisive leader. So is the problem here BBM is kuting? Ay, sorry. BBM is indecisive or
Well,
diffident. Is that the
I think
problem?
the way I see it, if he does not do it, he believes that PhilHealth any appropriation, you should get the funds out of PhilHealth because they're not using the funds. You know, that's the only explanation. If he really believes, he must truly believe that PhilHealth is awash with funds and it should not be given further appropriations. That's the only. But you know, in the financial statement of PhilHealth itself, signed by Ledesma, the president, everybody, negative equity, 600 billion.
Kaya nga hindi ko maintindihan yung defense ni Senator Poe, to be honest. Like, yung sinasabi niya, intact pa rin yung integrity, fiscal integrity ng PhilHealth. Justice Carpio, going back to this issue, what is your read naman dito sa mga Dutertes? If you were to compare Dutertes and the current administration, how would you compare them? Is it a question of greater evil, lesser evil? Is it a question of complete different degrees of threat to constitutional democracy? Kasi ako, Justice Carpio, I mean, to be clear about it, for me, the hard truth is this. Sana we lived in a different context, but the downfall of Marcos means the gain of the Dutertes, because Sara Duterte is the constitutional successor, right? So any discussion about revolutionary government, about coup d'etat, about people power, automatically, this doesn't benefit necessarily the good people. This benefits the Dutertes, right?
Well, there will be a struggle uh, if uh, if the Marcoses stumble. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will be the Dutertes that will take over. There will still be a struggle between the the anti-Marcos, anti-Duterte group because there's a group that's anti
Genuine
to both
opposition.
of them, and also those who are anti-Duterte only. So it's not a given that the Dutertes will prevail. And you have Duterte who's old already, and the more people, 41% of people compared to 35 who are against the impeachment. So 41 are in favor of the impeachment of Sara,
This is the
35 are
SWS
against. So
survey, right? Yeah. Can we
yes,
talk
that's
about that? So the survey says that a large plurality of Filipinos are open to impeachment of Sara, right? 40% almost.
41% against 35 who are against the impeachment. That's and the balance of about 9%, you can divide it also 45-35. So that will be a majority already. So it doesn't for me it doesn't follow that Sara will prevail or will come out on top because the Quadcom has done a good job in demolishing her credibility now.
Pero yun nga, yun ang concern ko. Justice, no one is talking about the Quadcom anymore. Everyone is talking about ACAP. Everyone is talking about PhilHealth now. Isn't that worrying to you?
Well, they could easily bring back the Quadcom committee report by starting the investigation. by filing the plunder case. I mean, they can revive that. But if they hold back now, what will be in the headlines will be the budget. But
And
it's very simple to to pacify those who are against the budget now by just the president will just announce,
just a
Mr.
few things.
Congress, yeah, pass the supplemental budget for PhilHealth and for DepEd, and I think people will calm down.
And now, Justice, what is your read of the January 13 peace rally by one of the major religious groups in the country? Ano to? Flexing of the muscle to show na malakas pa rin ang mga pro-Duterte camp?
Well, there's
Threat ba ito kay BBM? What the heck is going on there?
well initially people thought that that was an anti-impeachment uh, rally in favor of Sara. But it turns out even Malacanang wants the rally because they said no classes. You're free to to attend. And I understand that. Well, I saw it on TV that the Iglesia said no other group will be allowed to show its position. Only this is a peace rally, and the the Duterte people cannot even wear their green T-shirts. So they've taken out Sara. This is not a pro-Sara rally. That's the message.
So what is
So
it if it's not a pro-Sara rally? Because if it's against impeachment and against any major move against Duterte, then what is it? I just don't get it.
well,
Just
that's why suddenly it looks like that the Iglesia has dropped Sara Duterte, and they're now saying we want everybody to talk about peace. There must be peace in our land, and they have banned any Sara Duterte banners. They cannot even wear the green T-shirts. So,
what is peace?
so you have
I
here.
don't get it. So they're pro-peace. What does peace mean in this
Well,
context? Na-allow lang natin na bababuyin yung confidential fund.
they're saying that the problems of the country should be resolved peacefully in accordance with law. Yun yung kanilang ano. That's their message.
So against
So
coup d'etat, ganun, RevGov.
yes, that's the meaning of that. So that takes the wind out of the sail of Sara. Wala na because they built this as a pro-Sara rally, and then suddenly Sara is out. And the next rally, I think that's January 18 or 19. That's the uh, impeach Sara rally. Rally is to defend Sara, and wala yung defense.
Right.
We'll proceed.
Right.
And then we have the rally of which is against mainly against the budget. So nawala yung mga the pro Duterte, the Duterte side has lost the platform. They don't have a rally.
Interesting. So that's your read of it. Kasi ang read ni Ronald is parang nag-concede ang administration dun sa pro-Sara camp by giving it a kind of a national holiday aura. So your read is the complete opposite na parang this group is just doing what it's doing para lang walang RevGov or coup d'etat, but not necessarily siding with the Dutertes.
Yeah, I think they realize that they it's not in their interest to come out in favor of Sara. So they're saying peace kami, peace.
Eh di
Peace
sama
means
tayo. Di justice kasama tayo, di ba?
kaya nga sinasabi nila. So, but of course, we have
Sama
set
na
our
yung
own
mga
rally
Queen,
already.
sama na yung Miss Universe, pwede na
Yeah.
lang.
Pag peace niyan, that means that's for the benefit of the administration. Because you're saying peace means you continue with the administration peacefully. Nawalan sila ng platform.
This is the postmodern situation. Anyone can spin this in their own favor. Oy, wala kami sinasabi ha. Peace lang kami. Oy, wala kami sinasabi. I mean,
At saka, for the Malacanang to say, okay, holiday, you everybody can join, And that means may ayusan na. I mean,
Ayan
they've come
tayo
to a
eh. Ang gulo
settlement.
talaga ng Pilipinas. So, Justice Carpio, you don't, okay. So, in short, you don't buy this argument na masyadong diffident and indecisive si BBM. What you're saying is that some maneuverings are still going on which still are ultimately cornering the Dutertes. That's your read.
Well, right now, I think the Dutertes have been outmaneuvered in this January rallies, the rallies of January. But the administration has to do something to just calm down everybody by passing the supplemental budget for DepEd and PhilHealth because that's the solution. So that this will no longer be an issue, the president will no longer be unpopular. They have to solve this problem that way. If they don't do anything to give money to provide budget for the computerization of DepEd and for PhilHealth, then the people will continue to protest.
Okay, I see where you're coming from, Justice Carpio. Okay, so basically your point here is that it's not like malakas yung pro-Sara forces and there's enough nuancing and all uh, to argue that things are changing in Duterte's favor. But nevertheless, BBM still has to do his part, which is
Yeah,
ayusin yung gulo na to sa budget. Okay, I
he,
get
he
it.
can still save the situation.
Get ko yan. Gets ko yan. Again, I appreciate this perspective, Justice, because it's quite different from some of the other perspectives we're hearing, but this is good. This is very important. The next thing I want to ask Justice Carpi here is Matobato. Finally, it looks like he's in a place of safety. Bakit it took so long for him? Because Las Cañas has been a witness for the ICC for quite some time. Is it because Las Cañas can speak English and is a well-versed professional, I don't know, policeman or whatsoever? Why it took years for Matabato, who could have been killed any moment throughout the years, to get that passport, to get out of the country, to get the anonymity, to get out of the country? Why it took so long for the ICC? And now that he's more or less within the custody of the ICC, we're not going to reveal his exact location. Does that mean that the final piece of the puzzle could come together?
Well, first of all, the reason why it's only now because they could not bring him out of the country. It was difficult to spirit him out of the country. It's only when President Marcos Jr. became president that they decided to bring him out. I think it was too risky to bring him out. So, of course, once he's out, he could be interviewed by the ICC prosecutors, and they accepted him. So he's now under the protection of the ICC. No, that's why because that's the reason why it's only now because he could not go there.
Important is the testimony of Oscar of Matabato, because I mean, he saw things firsthand because Las Cañas was like the consigliere. I was a lieutenant, right? But Matabato was the henchman, right? He was the guy on the ground overseeing the operations, horrible operations, including cannibalist activities to create a sense of solidarity, no? Dun sa quarry where all of the bodies were buried. I mean, if some of you don't have time to read Patricia Evangelista's whole book, then at least read the Hannah Beach's pieces on New York Times about about Matabatos. Justice Carver, what is your read of how important his testimony to the ICC could be? Could this be the culmination of the evidence gathering portion of the ICC investigation?
Well, I understand that there is one more police officer in the custody of the ICC. I think there are at least three of them. Not only Las Cañas, but also not only Matubato and Las Cañas, but another one. And we don't know who that is. But I think they have enough witnesses to pin down Duterte. But I don't know why it's taking them time to issue the warrant of arrest. No.
Is it because hindi cooperative yung Philippine government?
Well, they did not expect the Philippine government really to cooperate. But and there are a lot of admissions by the president and by Duterte himself. He said, "I was the one." He even before the Quadcom, he said he killed he killed drug addicts. He killed criminals. I mean, so all of those extrajudicial confessions are admissible in evidence.
Now we had this discussion about Duterte essentially incriminating himself, diba? In that very self-indulgent Senate.
Yeah, yeah. It will be used against him. I'm sure of that. They will. They have all of this uh, video interviews of him.
So you think we're reaching the moment of truth? Again, I know we don't want to get into trouble because last year we were talking about September,
Yeah,
whatever.
I think
But we're
everything
very
is in
optimistic.
place. It's up to the ICC now whether to issue the warrant of arrest or not. And then there will be a problem because unless the ICC has physical custody of Duterte, the trial will not proceed. So it will now be President Marcos Jr.'s call whether to turn him over or not. If he turns him over, then he gets rid of his problem.
Well, I'm looking at the situation in South Korea. Medyo nahirapan yata yung South Korean police to arrest former President Kim Jong-un. Sorry, President Yoon. I call him Kim Jong-un. Do you think that should be worrying? Or dahil meron tayong General Torre, yun yung wala sa Korea. They have a Kiboloy catcher. They don't have a Kiboloy catcher like us. Do you think General Torre could be the guy to arrest Duterte once the arrest comes out? Are we in a better position to get things through?
Yes, I think because the PBBM is the president and he can order. And there is this law, the Philippine International Humanitarian Law, which says even if you're not a member of ICC, the president can decide whether to prosecute the accused here or to turn him over to an international tribunal. He has the authority under the law to do that.
And do you think eventually Marcos will move in that direction? Because he went from totally towing the Duterte line to saying he's open, and then eventually Bersamin, your former colleague in the Supreme Court, saying that the Philippines will cooperate, and DOJ Secretary saying wala
Well,
tayong choice. Do you think that's the arc here?
I think he will, especially if Sara is included as in the warrant of arrest. Because you remember what Sara said. He dreamt of cutting the head. So
Beheading.
beheading,
Medyo ISIS style
there's
yun.
a ground to turn her over.
And you think Sara is out of the woods when it comes to impeachment because there was supposed to be a fourth impeachment in the mix. Some are saying after elections na lang. I mean, I had Senator Trillanes on this show saying maybe after elections na lang. Isn't that too late for an impeachment?
Well, the problem is they may not have time because after the election, they only have 1 month to meet, and it's less than a month to meet. And I don't think they will have the time to finish the trial. So I think the solution there is really just to file a plunder case
Ah,
because there will be a
yun
new
na lang.
ombudsman by August. So that the fallback, and I think that's what eventually will happen. They will just file the plunder case.
And what about the sedition with Duterte saying fractured government, military has to come in, with Sara Duterte threatening the president, grave threats? What about those criminal charges?
Well, the against Duterte, the that's a difficult. There's an easier way to do it by filing the plunder case because sedition, uh, that's very tricky. You have to uh, show that there was a seditious act,
Yeah, na
and
may mga nag-coordinate, cooperate
oh
from
yeah,
military, service. Yeah,
mahirap
yeah. You
yun
have to have the
kasi
chain of, yeah, yeah.
yeah, your defense there is freedom of expression. So it's easier because you have 121 million that was paid to non-existent persons.
Right. So what you're saying essentially, just Carp, is that impeachment medyo malabo, especially after our elections, but the plunder one seems to be the most feasible and viable options to pin down the Dutertes for good in terms of accountability. Because mas mahirap i-prove yung sedition and all of the other charges. Because the
Yeah,
chain of evidence you need to establish is
yeah.
extremely difficult. Now, let's go to the last part of our discussion, Justice Carpio. Um, so just in a week or so, Donald Trump is gonna take over the greatest president. And according to the greatest president in the universe, 51st state na daw in Canada. Nakalimutan na tayo yung Pilipinas. And he wants to take over Greenland. I've been in Greenland, and the people in Greenland don't like Denmark. And I know a lot of them want to join the US, but what do you make out of Trump openly threatening to take over Panama Canal, Greenland? He didn't rule out economic or even military measures to even get Canada. Isn't that bad in a sense that isn't that the wrong signal to China and Russia na parang kung malaking power ka, it's the rule of the jungle?
Well, he's actually emulating Putin. So how can we now hold Putin to account when the US itself is doing the very act, the same act that Putin did? And uh, and Greenland, what on earth has has Greenland done to offend the US? Wala naman ginawa eh. And the Dutch are very
Compared
friendly to the US.
Danish, yeah, the Danes, their fellow Viking NATO member. Kawawa yung Denmark, nakawawa ko sa Denmark. How bad this Justice Carpi for the rules-based international order? Because
Very bad.
very bad, right?
Because, yeah, because we are against the Russian invasion of Ukraine because the UN Charter expressly outlaws the use of force or the threat of force to settle a dispute. The US has a dispute with Panama over use of the Panama Canal. You cannot use force because China will use force against us. And we cannot complain anymore. We can. China will say, "Oh, look, the U.S. is doing that to Panama. How can we invoke international law?"
And how can you respect the US saying rules-based order and standing with us on
Yeah,
international?
wala na. That's they're throwing away out of the window their adherence to the rule of law. They they're, they are just like Russia now. If they do that to Panama and to Greenland, they are exactly like Russia.
At least in Canada, sabi nila. Just to be clear, we Canadians define ourselves as not being American, right? So the last thing we want is to be part of the United States. Okay, what if just eto na lang, Justice, for the sake of argument, marami tayong mga followers na pro-Trump. As you may know, there are more pro-Trump Filipinos than pro-Trump Filipino Americans, right? So it just tells the level of political consciousness sa ating bansa. But ang argument nila, Richard, you don't understand the genius of Donald Trump. He's just out of the deal. He's just trying to do intimidation. What is your read of that, Justice Carver? Maybe we're just being too liberal and hater. Does rhetoric alone set a dangerous precedence, even if Trump doesn't act on his rhetoric?
Yeah, because the Chinese will say, well, U.S. president is saying that he can invade Panama. Why can't we do it to the Philippines? Why can't Russia do it to Ukraine?
Or to
So
Taiwan in the case of China, yeah.
yeah, so the U.S. now will lose its moral high ground. It cannot preach to the world, Russia, you cannot invade another country because the U.S. president is saying we can do it also. I mean, uh, even if it's just a statement and it will not be followed through, it's going to hurt the image of the US and it's going to embolden China and Russia and other countries.
That's what I'm saying. Even if it's just like a tactical art of the deal
Mm.
posturing, it's not sending the right signal, right? It's sending the opposite. Kasi sinasabi ng iba, no, this is just Donald Trump's art of the deal. Di niya naintindihan yung genius ni Donald Trump. No, he's not a genius. He just He's just a bully and at the top of the most powerful country. It's so easy to bully everyone else when you're the president of the United States. There's nothing genius about that. If anything, it's the opposite. It's actually foolish. And it makes a joke out of the rules-based international order. Which brings me to the final part of our discussion, Justice Carpio. So what is the implication for the Philippines? Are you now even more worried about what a Donald Trump 2.0 could mean for the Philippines? And what the heck should we do to protect our own interests in the West Philippine Sea para siguraduhin natin na hindi lang tayo tuta ng Amerika, or we're not just part of the menu if Trump and China cut a grand bargain?
Well, I've always said that we have to strengthen our own defenses because at the end of the day, we may not be able to rely on any other country. And I was thinking that, the U.S. has a history of isolationism twice before World War One and before World War Two, and they could do it again. And I thought that this would happen years from now, but it could happen anytime now because of Trump. And for Trump to say that we cannot blame Russia for invading Ukraine, tomorrow he might say we cannot blame China for invading the Spratlys. I
Or
mean,
Taiwan?
or Taiwan.
Yeah.
Well, Taiwan is well armed, but not
We are not.
we're not well armed. So we are the low hanging fruit.
We are the very available fruit there. Justice Carpio, there's this line narrative in the Duterte camp that Sara Duterte was invited to the inauguration of Trump, that Trump loves the Dutertes, and that Trump hates BBM because BBM is too tough Biden. What is your read of that? Kasi siguro ang basa ko, Justice, yung open invite lang doon sa field, sa may Lincoln, para lang mapuno yung drone shot. Baka doon na-invite si Sara Duterte, hindi doon sa heads of state. And then they made a big show out of it. What do you read into this whole Duterte saying, congratulations to my pal, and then like all of these pro-Duterte saying, Trump will save me because he hates, like liberal internationalists like BBM and Biden. Like, what is your read into that whole chutzpah?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's correct. Factually, I don't think Sarah was invited because they announced that they will not be
Doon lang sa may
inviting
hot dog
anyone.
stands doon sa lawas sa Lincoln Park.
So, well, I don't know why they're using that, but wala na silang talagang ibang magamit, no? Because
It's trying to hold on to anything they
yeah,
di ba?
hindi nga kinumbida yung best friend niya si Putin eh.
Ang pake sa kanila. I mean, why don't they get it, Justice? Like, Trump doesn't care about losers. If you're not in power, you don't count, right? So I just don't understand this fixation of the pro-Duterte camp na kasama daw sila sa populist international, na Duterte will rescue them. Grabe, parang ito yung QAnon ng Philippines, no? May version din tayo ng ganon. Hindi daw invited si BBM. What should BBM do with Duterte? Aside from, I don't know, making Imelda Marcos talk to Trump. I don't know how lucid she is, but I don't know. Talk about Studio 54 days and like whatever.
Well, they did the right thing by removing her from the National Security Council.
Asad, what is the relevance of taking out Sara from the executive committee and Digong from the broader circle of National Security Council? Was that a signal to say, malapit na tayo mag-negotiate with the Trump people? We don't. Is this their way of saying baka malik yung minutes namin sa China? Do you think that's
Well, why will you entrust the secrets of the nation to somebody who dreams of cutting your head? I mean, for me, it's totally reasonable to remove her because of what she said.
and leakage, right? You think
Yeah,
there's legitimate fear na
well, the
malik yung
leakage. And in other words, here is a person who wants you killed and who announced it to the public. So why will you
Joke
put
naman. No joke na joke. Ay, hindi ko alam how does it work in the Duterte. Conditional threat naman daw. As long as buhay pa naman si Sara, buhay din naman.
but still a threat?
So, Justice Garvey, are you concerned that magkuplot tong mga walang ay sorry, mga walang yan. Mga mga Duterte na yan. Do you think they are in a position ever to launch a coup d'etat or something? RevGov?
Well, I don't think they're in a position because I don't think the military will follow an ex-president. I think they've been drilled enough to follow the chain of command, and the highest person there is the president, the commander in chief, the incumbent. Their loyalty is to the incumbent, not to the past president.
Unless you're also an ex-general na irrelevant. You're,
Well,
yeah, sabi ko, people come on, hindi naman military mga to, mga retired na to eh. Hindi naman relevant to mga retired generals. So wala nang influence mga yan. Just on a parting point here, so what is your advice? What should BBM do, again for recap, what should BBM do in the next week or two? And what should the genuine opposition do in a week or two also to make sure na hindi sasakyan ng mga DDS itong whole budget scandal controversy issue na yan? Kasi talagang ginagamit nilang issue na to. At least I'm glad you're seeing that, Justice Carp, because I've been warning about this for quite some time.
well, first on the side of the government, the president should ask Congress to pass a supplemental budget for DepEd and for PhilHealth, and that will quiet down a lot of people. And on the part of the opposition, they should say that we have filed cases against Sara in the confidential fund. We will support the impeachment, but we're also against this budget. I mean, we're not just because we're against this budget doesn't make us pro Sara anymore. I mean, it doesn't follow.
Yeah, and I think tama yung ginawa ni Tanyada, no? Ni Congressman Tanyada to call out also Duterte's when they try to make drama out of the National Security Council purge to say, we, kayo rin, di ba? Tinanggal nyo rin si Robredo sa National Security Council. Dapat ganun eh. Tama yung ginawa ni Tanyada eh. Dapat every time ito mga Duterte, ito mga to, ay sumasakay dito sa mga issue na ito, you call them out and say, wala kayong karapatan, wala kayong moral integrity, wala kayong moral capital ascendancy to talk about these issues, including sa issue ng corruption. Not to mention the extrajudicial killings, among other things. Justice Carpio, would I be right to say, or maybe disagree, that the Duterte still remain as the number one threat to constitutional democracy in the Philippines? Not to mention our territorial integrity in the West Philippine Sea. That for all the foibles and faults of BBM, for everything legitimate we can say about the budget of Marcos Jr., that still the fundamental threat to our constitutional democracy are the Dutertes.
Well, not primarily, because I think the number one threat to our constitutional democracy is if President Marcos Jr. fails miserably, and the the people will want a RevGov, and the Dutertes will not necessarily be on top, but could fan the flames of a RevGov, could be supporting character, because of course the RevGov Council will not choose Duterte because they know he's passed, but gagatungan nila. No, I don't think that they are in a position to change, to topple the president, the incumbent. But if by chance something happens to the president, like he dies, automatically it becomes Sara. That will be the only situation where I can see the Duterte's coming back.
Okay, let me rephrase that because I'm very disappointed with your answer, Justice Carpio. Like wait. I invited you to support my argument. I'm just kidding. Ganito na lang. Is it far worse if Sara Duterte were the president right now or to come back to power compared to BBM? Are the Dutertes the greater evil? Okay, let me put it that way. Is that a better way of putting the question?
Well, as of now, yes, they would be the greater evil, taking into account their track record of killing over 30,000 Filipinos. But I think they're not in a position to take over except by constitutional succession,
So
not
essentially,
by
yeah.
force.
So Essentially, just to be clear, dun sa mga haters ko, Justice Carpio is saying, morally speaking, worse ang Dutertes, but functionally and operationally, they're not as powerful to be a direct threat to come into power soon. Is that what you're saying, Justice Carpio?
Yes, they cannot mount a coup d'etat, but there can be an occasion that Sara will become president if Bongbong Marcos dies. In that sense, they are still a threat,
Heartbeat away, yeah.
heartbeat away.
Um, yeah, I think I got enough from out of this interview, Justice Carpio, kasi dami naman nagagalit sa akin. Ito na naman si Darian. Pero 'di ba, I'm just saying to people, I mean, of course, di tayo fan ni BBM. Maraming problema talaga mga Marcoses, dictatorship, human rights ganon. I'm just saying, ingat lang talaga tayo kasi ginagamit ng mga Duterte itong mga budget scandal nito. But actually, I agree with you, Justice Carpio. I think the power of the Dutertes is inflated. They are very good in exaggerating their own non-existent influence. Pababa yung approval ratings in Sara. She only has what, 22% net approval rating. 20% down in Visayas, 13% down in Mindanao. None of them bothered to run for Senate because their numbers are almost pathetic. Yeah, I mean, I'm not here to exaggerate the power of the Dutertes. I'm just saying here that, let's not forget the big picture. That if there's one thing worse than corruption, Justice Carpio, is mass killing of Filipino people, right? I think we can agree on that.
Yeah,
Killing
of
Filipinos is
course,
worse
yes.
than corrupting their national budget, right?
Yeah,
Yung
the
kaban ng
worst
bayan.
thing you can do, the worst thing that a leader can do is to kill his own people.
And we know who has done more of that than any other Filipino president, right? So I think that should settle the discussion. On that note, thank you very much, Justice Carpio. Looking forward to hopefully kung imbitado pa rin kami ni Sir Ronald. Nag-behave naman kami last time in your place. If you're open to it, hopefully we can catch up before the end of the year. We can have in person because people really love our dynamic in person. And of course, Justice Carpio, if there's anything that you think we have to, is there anything in particular that you want us to focus on? Ano bang, is there a Supreme Court ruling that people have to watch out for in the coming days or weeks?
Well, we hope that the Supreme Court will decide the confidential fund issue because that's already ripe for decision and it's really needed to put clarity to this issue.
On that note, thank you very much, Justice Carpio. Mabuhay ka, and hopefully, God willing, see you soon in person. Happy New Year and a blessed one to you and your loved ones. Salamat, Justice Carpio.
Thank you again, Richard, for inviting me, and thank you to our viewers.
Salamat. And Justice, you're always free to agree with me and say I have the greatest arguments in the Philippines. Salamat, Justice Carpio.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
thank you.
God bless.